Hello and welcome to Equip the Emotional Intelligence podcast. I'm Aaron Garner.
I'm Harry Lansley.
And we're here at episode number 7. It's been a busy month.
Is it 7?
I think it's 7, yeah. It's been a busy month. We've been working a lot with our MSc students, so we've had people coming towards the end of their year 1, or now have come to the end of their year 1, and have started their year 2 projects. So we've seen a lot of great ideas coming through. So it's been an inspirational month.
Absolutely.
But it's been a busy one, for sure.
Because it has, yeah. I mean, September is always mental.
It is.
But always great. Like the previous students are leaving, new ones are coming in. So just as we're getting a little bit sad, we get a bunch of fresh faces. It's great.
There is that. And again, we've got a great diversity of projects coming through as well. People looking at things from therapy point of view, bringing emotional intelligence into education, people looking at emotional intelligence in the military. Shout out to the students. It's a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to, and probably things we will be discussing in these podcasts as some of those projects do develop. But one of the things that has raised its head, again, because it's a popular topic and was discussed in our WhatsApp EIA family chat with the alumni, was AI.
Yeah.
And you started that because you dropped that question into the chat and off it went. So.
Yeah, so I think we knew we were always going to have some kind of podcast about artificial intelligence. We talk about it a lot informally in the office, and it's going to become increasingly a thing with our students as well, because I think the interest is there. There's a lot of stuff out there about artificial intelligence becoming emotionally intelligent. And I thought we could have a little chat about it. We could talk about the work we've done with companies who are trying to bring emotional intelligence into their platforms, the experience we've had where it's been implemented all right and where it's been implemented really, really badly. I don't think we've yet to see one where it's been implemented well yet, because I just don't think we're there with artificial intelligence. It will get to that point, I'm sure. But just on that, I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit about the projects you've been involved in, where you've got these organisations out there seeing the trend up with artificial intelligence, and they understand how important the emotional side are going to be, and then they're trying to bring those two worlds together.
I think, because there's been a lot of interests across the sectors, haven't there? So we've had work in kind of the technology area, looking at kind of technology in education and the automotive kind of industry as well. And predominantly they're looking at kind of that automated process of emotional recognition in order to facilitate some kind of user interface or direct the user in some way of the product, whether that's technology and TVs or whatever it might be, or cars and that kind of element, looking at the experience that users have. And as we know from a lot of the facial action coding process that we've done on some of that, and then feeding some of that back and testing some of their systems, they're not all that accurate, because the problem is there's a lack of hypothesis involved in some of the judgments being made by a lot of the systems that have been used. And if you make misjudgments of emotional facial expressions, for example, I mean, we can talk about vocal tone and all that kind of stuff as well, from a verbal analysis and vocal analysis. But if you make those mistakes, then there's a big difference between somebody being emotional and somebody just being thoughtful. And if you're basing very important decisions on technology, on car use, on some of those things, then it's something that's important to consider.
Yeah, so I mean, if we take the car one as an example, that particular company had a camera that was looking at the driver, and then it was trying to gauge on the attention of the driver and the actual emotional enjoyment of the driver as well. And then they were going to use that as, I mean, the emotional side for kind of market research. Do people enjoy driving our cars? Are they comfortable? And then the attention one was like a safety feature, is if we can have it in the car and we can realize that someone is losing attention, then we can set off a bong, tell them to pull over, all that kind of thing. But the problem with artificial intelligence in its current form is it can crunch data that exists. So yes, they can pick up on certain facial movements, and then try its best to understand what they are, but it can't crunch its thinking. So it can't think, and this comes back to the hypothesizing. It doesn't have the entire context. It's just, I see something, this is what I think it is. And when it comes to humans and emotions and the face in general, there's just far too many variables to start saying, we can now tell you feel this way.
Yeah. And we've had a lot of conversations also about trying to, not us trying to, but other people trying to automate things like deception detection, for example.
Yeah.
And, you take a bunch of videos of people telling lies and a bunch of videos of people telling truth, and you feed it into a learning model which looks at all of those things and then says, okay, well, the common features here are this and the common features here are this, therefore anyone showing this is a liar and anyone showing this is telling the truth. And then you pump a video in and it gives you a red or a green light to tell you whether or not someone is telling the truth or not.
And it actually literally does that.
It literally does that, a little traffic light system about how much of a liar this person is. But the problem is the data that you're putting in. How diverse is the data, for a start? Because there was an issue with a lot of the data being put in, the data set being used, the data being used and modelled upon wasn't very diverse. So you have huge issues of diversity.
Skin culture in this sense.
From whether it's from facial construction, whether it's from skin color, whether it's gender, and all those kinds of things. So the data set itself doesn't really lend itself to a wide application of use. So it might work a little bit on a very specific demographic of people, but it's not something that you would want to rely on. And again, it comes back to that hypothesis point. If it gives you a yes or no, lying or not, it's not accounting for that. Okay, these things are here. Are there other reasons why someone might do those things? Just because a lot of people did those things in the videos that you use for training, is there any other reason why people might do those behaviours? Often, yes.
And this is the crazy thing, isn't it? Because even we wouldn't go out and start saying this person's lying and this person's not, and that's with the ability to do the whole hypothesis journey. Yet they've got machines doing it who can't even do the hypothesizing side of it. So that's actually terrifying. The other thing that sucked about that particular piece of tech was the data they were feeding into it was students who were doing, hello, Jordan's just popped in the office, students who were basically told to tell a lie or tell the truth. So stakes were really, really low. It wasn't based on any real active criminal cases. And it's that whole thing of you put shit in, you get shit out. And that is really dangerous when you are doing the red and green truth lie. It's terrifying.
For sure. And it's also moving into airports, obviously, as well, with the border control when you go through and you have to look at a camera and it's looking at your facial expressions as you're going through the survey on the machine. So rather than having a security agent there, you're looking at a machine that's analysing your face. And it was looking at things like thermal imaging and those kinds of stuff as well. So it's trying to take in data of, are you flushing or are you ill? Do you have bird flu or whatever it was scanning for at the time? It's being used in some quite high-stakes situations where really you do need somebody that has the ability to take all that information, to consider context, to consider potential baselines of individuals, given the context of an airport, for example, where people are stressed, are often annoyed, are worrying about catching their flight. So there's loads of reasons why people behave in those ways, and everyone is bringing their own context for being in the airport, be it business, personal, whatever it might be. So many different factors that can be implemented there. So that's some of the stuff that we've been obviously touching on in the consultations that we've done over the years, gradually. And as you said, we've not seen anything that's gone, wow, we're nearly there yet. It's a fair way off. We're seeing improvements. There's exponential growth in the technology that's out there, but it's interesting to see where else it is being used, like recruitment, education, those kinds of things.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we've seen a lot of, a lot of the people we've dealt with are doing it with pro-social kind of ambitions. but we've chosen not to work with a few who are almost using the kind of shadowy world of AI and emotional intelligence to put forward a product that they say can read emotions, therefore can make what are currently really expensive or really long decision-making processes really quickly.
Yeah.
So one of them was a recruitment company, and they're like, so we take someone's CV as usual, and then what we do is we'll use AI to sift through all the CVs, pick out the keywords that we're looking for, absolutely bin off everyone else. We've now narrowed down 1,000 CVs to 20. We now hit up those 20 people and tell them to record to a camera why they deserve the job, and then we'll use our emotionally intelligent AI to scan that video to try and understand whether they're ambitious, excited, happy, or otherwise.
Yeah.
And we looked at that, and actually what they were doing was getting human beings to try and code the videos, pretending it was artificial intelligence. And they were basically trying to inflate this company because he wanted to float it on the market.
Yeah.
And there's so many people doing that. Like that lie detector, the red and green, they're trying to do exactly the same thing. The technology isn't there, but because it's in this kind of grey area that we don't yet fully understand, people are getting away with basically conning people. And there's a lot of that happening right now.
And we have it in entertainment as well, so people are buying into a lot of this, where we have the robot that is on all chat shows right now, where they wheel her on. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But then engage with this most intelligent, most human-like robot. I think it was maybe Jimmy Kimmel or something.
You told me about it.
Where they come on and as a host, he's asking questions, and the robot is responding, and they're having this banter, and it's being sarcastic, and all of that kind of stuff. And you think, wow, that robot is acting.
Yeah, this is the future.
This is the future. This is the future. That human is responding. It's cracking jokes. It's being sarcastic. But then only later do you realise that was all scripted. That whole interaction was it wasn't spontaneously delivering those lines. It had been taught how to respond to those questions and given certain lines. But the problem is, if you watch those videos, much like if you see the marketing for a lot of products like that, you kind of buy into it. Yeah. And yes, recruiters are doing screening. Yes, recruiters are screening abstracts and looking for particular keywords. Humans have done that for a long time as well. But to be fair, you go through and you look for particular phrases that might indicate the person has researched the company that you work for and you're recruiting for. But if you do start doing that, if you do start going, okay, we'll put our mission values statements into the system and start screening, nearly said abstracts then, I'm stuck in research mode. But yeah, then we start screening some of those cover letters or the CV for very specific words, you're discounting those people that do talk very differently about the passion for that particular job. Perhaps you are discounting a lot of people that may still have a huge amount of value for your organisation, but you've discounted them because they didn't mention very specific words that are linked to this. They might have used different words that may be even synonyms for the things that you're talking about, but you've discounted them because
you might
the
have an
system.
absolute star.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a shame. That's a shame that happens. And if it did go the route that these companies purport to want to take it in, again, you're not allowing for a wider diversity of responses between a human and a human to think about, okay, well, let's learn a bit more about this individual to find out why they're saying those things, because there might be a real gem here. Whereas if it's, they didn't mention this, they didn't mention this, they didn't mention this, cross, off you go. That's a problem.
And the flip side of it as well is they're using videos. You could refilm that 20 times if you needed to. You could use a script if you wanted to. So it's hiring someone is probably one of the most important things you do as a business owner, and trusting the technology in its current form is a terrible decision to make because it's not even remotely there.
And you could play that system easily as well. You know, if you want to work for a particular company and you look at their mission statements and stuff, you get ChatGPT to write you the perfect cover letter that meets all of the words.
CV for this URL.
For this URL, yeah. Because that's the thing now. You know, most people are getting wise to the use of AI, and if you're using AI for screening like that, then you can easily use AI to help you bypass that screening.
Cancelling each other out,
exactly.
basically.
So then what's the point at that point when everybody is doing that? And then you end up with disingenuous CVs and things because people are just using AI to combat the AI that's going to be screening them, and then you're not seeing the real person. So then if you do bring those people in, at what point do you actually find out who the person actually is?
Yeah,
yes, in interview. Yeah, yes, you'll have an interview process. You would hope that isn't going to be just an avatar that interviews you, which there is some of that element as well that's coming into play. But yeah, I think there's a big area there that is interesting to watch, but big questions should be asked of organisations that are thinking about going that route just because it's on vogue.
Yeah.
And we should be getting involved in AI. Why should you be getting involved in AI? You know, what's the reason that sits behind it? Is it to speed things up? And if it's to speed things up, what are you risking?
Yeah.
What's the expense of that? So
absolutely.
But yeah, and then on the flip side of that, I guess there is. So MIT did some work with the MAC project, which is the My Automated Conversation Coach, looking at using AI interviewers that actually give you live time feedback on your conversation process. So, you know, you have these students or people that are low in confidence. They've worked on confidence and people that are neurodiverse and those kinds of things, and basically talk to them like it's an interview situation, then give them feedback on their responsiveness, on the types of questions that are being used in response, so that it's a training tool. So It's not telling them what to do, but it's giving them real-time feedback on the perception. Now, again, that comes back to what has that been trained on?
Yeah, is it trying to turn people into, you know,
a carbon copy
your presenters that do all
Yeah.
this, or is it teaching
Exactly.
them to be a more confident version of themselves?
Exactly, yeah, and it did seem to get results from an MIT point of view. It was well received against controls. They got good results, but again, what's the output? Because, as you know, if somebody goes for an interview, you should deliver who you are. Yes, there'll be impression management. Yes, you want to be the best self you can be, but be as close to you as you can be, and you'll tailor it to that particular organisation and to that particular interviewer or interview panel or whatever it might be. And yeah, if you're told that do this, do this, do this, do these things, there's a danger in that as well. So it's to what level do you advise very specific behaviours in an interview? So yeah, that's interesting anyway.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about as well is AI, particularly AI with some kind of emotional spin on it, can be used in education, and whether there's any value in pursuing something like that now, or you think the technology is just not there yet?
Yeah, I think it's one area to look at. So with an emotional spin on it is understanding people, which is obviously what we're about, and we want to understand so that we can help learners learn to the best of their ability, because not everybody learns in the same way. So if you've got emotionally intelligent systems, which don't yet exist, to be fair, it's something we're very keen on, then you can tailor education to the individual. Now that's what a human will do, should do for all you educators out there, is who is this individual? How do they behave? How do they respond? How do they engage with the content? And how can we make best use of the content types we've got, or the responses between us and them, to help them enjoy that education process? A lot of, when it comes to the writing in education, we're seeing AI take place in or being used in education, often by students. As well, so the students are jumping on that AI bandwagon as well, and I need to write this assessment, please write it for me, please don't do that. But also you're now starting to see it kind of creep into, there was a study looking at whether it's something that can be used in education for grading purposes. And that worries me a lot, where you should have a human that is looking at some work that a student has done, sorry. And that grader, being someone that does grade a lot, should be able to read that and get a sense of the voice of the student and understand the message that student is trying to convey, and not just have an AI give generic feedback based on a model. I get that it would speed the process up, but I think it disrespects the amount of work that a student has put into something like that. And I suppose if you've got 1,000 students, then again, it comes back to the same as an interview process of, oh yeah, but I'm just using it to screen. You know, you've got to be very careful in that, because at what point do you start to creep further and further and further, and then you just have no humans grading things?
It just devalues the whole experience of education, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think it having AI, especially in the as online learning and education is becoming more of a thing, having an understanding of how people are engaging with content, so that you can deploy content in certain ways based on preferences. That does make sense, which leads also into that kind of emotional support, and when do people need more or less support based on how they're responding and those kinds of things. So.
And that takes us nicely to another area of where artificial intelligence is now being used almost within a therapeutic context.
Yeah.
And whether you've got any thoughts on that and how that's being implemented right now with certain applications and things like that.
I think that there's a place for it for sure, especially so the research so far has been focused on people that are living in kind of care environments, for example, or are socially isolated. And in those contexts, I can see that the use of an avatar that will give you emotional support is of value. You know, it's no different to, looking at the impact of pets, for example, on the elderly or people that are socially isolated, and you can see the value in that. But then if you have an avatar that you can communicate with, and they're your support function, and they have an understanding of kind of counselling principles or therapeutic principles, if you're going to go down that route, that's a slightly more dangerous area, I would suggest, if you're talking about strict therapy processes, because it's not regulated enough as it is. And so if you've got avatars doing it, then that's a problem. But the research does suggest there is a lot of value in it, and people do feel accepted and validated, and they feel better about themselves. It's raising their overall well-being. You're seeing drops, reported reduction of symptoms of depression and things like that, when people are engaging with these self-help avatars.
Yeah.
The problem being they are potentially unrealistic in the fact that if you only engage with an avatar that only validates you and doesn't give you potentially much needed constructive critique and just validates everything you say and do, yes, it'll feel great. But then what if that's not there? What if it disappears? What if there's a bug? What if the system you're using goes down and it crashes? We're seeing in the research that causes huge, not just research, but news articles. If you look at things like applications like Replica, for example, which is one of the most popular out there, when people lose that support system, that person that they've grown to love, in a lot of cases, romantically love as well, they go through a period of grief. These people, especially if they have mental health issues in the first place, that can be a real problem. So that's an area of great concern, I would suggest.
And it's how those people who really form a relationship with their AI friend, partner, can then actually function in society generally. So if they're constantly being validated, if they're constantly made to feel good, we know the real world isn't like that. So then does that push them further and further into isolation and away from society? Because actually society is more uncomfortable than just sitting at home with my little AI that makes me feel great. So that's a terrifying thought.
It is, and I think it comes back to that point that we were talking about it gives the perception that it's responding as a human, but it's only basing its responses based on the data it's collected. It's learning, so there are learning models that are in place, and so it is constantly learning, and it will learn the user and know how to respond, but it's still only a replication of a response.
It's functioning on averages.
It doesn't feel empathy.
Yeah.
It's not emotionally intelligent, and that's where we've had discussions around. We're in a place where these systems can detect, they can understand, and they can respond, but they don't feel. So that's that nuance point of knowing the appropriateness of a response. Sometimes you have to be a little bit harder, a little bit not critical, but empathetic.
Yeah.
But not constantly validating. And the problem, because you don't have that first point of understanding how it feels as a human to be in that situation and understand the context, to know what the most appropriate response is. That's the problem.
I mean, we've talked about this before, and after speaking about it for a while, we got to the end and we're like, does it matter for that person though? So whilst the AI doesn't feel empathy, it doesn't feel the feelings of the person it's interacting with, the feelings of that person though are genuine.
Yeah.
And if that AI can comfort, console that person, does it really matter that the AI isn't genuinely empathizing with them?
No. And that's what the research is saying. So the research is saying for these people that have mental health issues, that are socially isolated, that don't have anyone, there's a huge value in that.
Yeah.
There's a huge value in that. But there's also a danger, given its technology, and technology can break and stop or disappear. If the company disappears and suddenly that entire support system is down, what damage might that do? So there is that. But then, back to your point, obviously it's not. So the individual's being socialised by avatars, essentially, and there becomes a new norm that develops, and that could be a problem, as you said a moment ago, when engaging with friends that don't necessarily validate everything you say.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely an area that's interesting, but it's creeping into lots of other stuff as well, isn't it? It's even art was a topic that came up in the chat.
Yeah. So this is the question of can AI be called an artist? So whether that's in painting a picture, producing a piece of music, producing film, will we humans ever appreciate an AI for its artistic abilities?
I think we already have, because you see these pictures and they'll go, that's amazing, what an amazing picture. And they go, oh, it's done by AI, oh, it's not that good.
Yeah.
But your response to the artwork initially is, that's amazing. So we appreciate it for sure, but then we devalue it the second we find out it's AI that's generated it, or we feel like, a lot of people are using it now on a lot of imagery, a lot of marketing work is using those AI images, and you can kind of get a sense for some of that. But some of it is amazing.
I guess that's because it can pull the averages of what people appreciate from the entire world and just go, right, so 70% of people really like this particular kind of artwork, therefore, I'll just do that. This
is on vogue. Right now, this kind of artwork has got a lot of value. If you look at the auction houses, these are all the types of art that's been selling recently in this particular area. There you go. There's one in that style.
But that's partly why I struggle with the idea of seeing it as an artist. Like, yes, it can produce art, but can you call it an artist? Because my idea of an artist is always someone who kind of articulates or produces something within their own mind, unique to them, and that's where the appreciation comes from, because you kind of get to go on the journey with them a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's not what AI is doing. AI is just like, yeah, you like this, boom, there you go.
Okay, so rather than when the artist painted this particular picture, this was what was going on for them, and this is the meaning behind why they painted that picture, is just, I've got some information about what's popular, what people like, therefore here's...
Yeah, it goes back to emotion. It's like you get to experience the artist's emotion as they're creating their artwork. Or certainly in the kind of artist I appreciate, is like you can you understand where they were at prior to doing it, where they were at whilst they're doing it, and then, if you're lucky, you get the story afterwards. And that really, for me, is what makes art valuable.
Yeah, yeah. Because that piece I certainly agree with. And humans, I'm not an artist. My dad's a very good artist. But
You're pretty good
humans,
at art with your painting.
Thank you very much. Humans also, especially when they're learning, they're also they're doing, art studies and looking at this particular artist, that particular artist, that particular artist. Now I'm going to do a piece on this particular topic using that style, using these kinds of brushstrokes and those kinds of things. So humans do that to an extent. They just don't have access to millions and millions and millions of bits of information at the same time and can't do it as quick, for sure. But yeah, so you could do it as an AI, is my point. So I could just go, I have a topic, I want to draw a picture and I'll use this style, done. No emotional involvement other than this isn't going as well as I thought, screwing it up, throwing it away and doing it 3 times, whereas AI can do all of that within a millisecond. But yeah, when you have these amazing pieces of art in galleries that have allegedly stories behind them, because some of these pieces of art, I must admit, I've looked at and gone, really?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is a journey behind it. There is something a story that you can get behind, and you definitely don't get that with AI generally. So, I mean, where are we going? Because we've got the stuff that we're looking at from a technology development point of view, things that will help, recruitment, maybe being used in education, maybe be using in art, but going forward, like what do we want to see? Where do you think AI is going to go? Where's it going to be valuable?
The thing with AI, as it becomes more generally intelligent, it's got the option to be really, really good and really, really bad. Probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
So on the good side, it can probably cycle through so many different variations of drug treatments really, really quickly. We might find cures for cancer using AI, probably, and diseases and all that kind of thing. AI will be fantastic for that. The issue is more of a societal issue, is AI's got the potential to be a million times smarter than the collective human. Mm-hmm. When it gets to that point, we've essentially created God as humans. We've just created this thing that is basically God. What does it want us for then? It doesn't. We don't really bring anything to the party at that point, and absolute power will always corrupt. So, at what point do we no longer have control over its capabilities? Right now, we do. So there's no major concern about AI in its current form. But as it gets more and more closer to general intelligence, thinking for itself, then you start bringing in influence, manipulation, all the kind of things that humans do. Like we're essentially creating a very, very clever version of ourselves, and humans do a lot of good and they can do a lot of evil.
Yeah.
And we won't have the capability to determine which pathway a general AI tool will go.
Yeah.
So really, yes, it might get us to.
And we'll end the podcast there on that dark note. But I think it's really important. Obviously, there'll be safeguarding processes put in place. There's already elements of that, and some of the new laws in the European Parliament that have come out to kind of monitor the use of AI in the AI Act, looking at how it's used and how it should be reported if AI is being used in systems and all that kind of stuff. So I think there will be obviously policies and acts put into legislation to make sure that those things are catered for. But that's definitely something that's out there that people are concerned about and have been concerned about for a while. So do we need to make sure then that as AI develops, and this is the tie-into seamless link to AI and EI, is as you develop AI to be more human, you have to develop the EI capacity of AI. Is it possible to do that, for a start, coming back to our point about can it actually feel? would that be more dangerous?
Yeah, it would.
That it understands emotion more?
It can manipulate people at that point.
Yeah, because I mean, we've said that emotional intelligence is useful for someone that has malintent because they understand the emotion of other people more.
Hitler was incredibly emotionally intelligent.
Okay.
To be able to, to be able to pull together what he did for such an evil means, you have to be able to put yourself into the shoes of the people to understand how you can influence and manipulate them. So emotional intelligence can be one of the most evil tools out there.
Yeah. Still learn about emotional intelligence. So
it's one of the best things,
one of the best things
out
there as well. But so, yeah, I think it's down to the safeguards and the policies put in place with people that develop a lot of the AI solutions out there. There's a responsibility on them to have some kind of a safeguarding system. I'm just getting flashbacks of Terminator going through my head right now. But it's
yes, we will put policies in place and we will have a kill switch, and it's a million times smarter than you. It will sort that out. Don't worry about it. It will know how to get around that. So it's one of those things. It's like, yes, there's a lot of people saying they're going to put things into place, but a general artificial intelligence is way smarter than all of us. So can we actually think that far forward that we can put things in place to stop it?
I think we should probably just stop with AI right now. We should turn it all off and stop using it.
Yeah, just go back to living in a cave.
Yeah. No more technological development. That's it. We're done. Everybody, I'm cancelling technological development from this point forward. You can keep Netflix. Right, cool. That's fine. But I think so. There's a lot of good stuff, and there's a huge amount of caveats that we need to consider for the development of that, because we don't want to be ruled by artificial intelligence.
I think the good news is, I don't think that those challenges are going to happen anytime soon. I think there's a feeling that it will, just because, when you going from nothing to ChatGPT was like, oh my God, this is incredible. But the distance from where ChatGPT is now to general artificial intelligence is probably in our the later stages of our lifetime, maybe, but probably 100 years.
Yeah, probably. It is exponential. I mean, it is ridiculous the speed at which, and the more we use AI, the faster the technology is developing, obviously, because we're using AI to help develop AI. So it's one of those aspects. But from our point of view, from a channels of communication point of view, we're seeing increases in the ability to detect facial expressions, but they're not quite there yet. Looking at vocal tone, verbal styles, all of those kinds of things. Psychophysiology, so all of the channels that we look at, we're seeing the detection, the recognition, the understanding coming in there. So it's interesting for our field to see how it might complement human interaction, but I don't see artificial intelligence replacing humans in the near future with regards to the work we do, and I wouldn't want to see it in education or in recruitment either, or any other sector, healthcare, whatever it might be. So
I think you've hit the nail on the head with that. Is humans are the most advanced species because we develop tools. I mean, we've got a big brain as well, but we develop things to further our cause and our ambitions and all that kind of thing. And AI right now is just a tool to help us do things more effectively, quicker, better.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're anywhere near the point yet of where it just stops becoming a tool and becomes more than that.
But it would be very interesting to hear your views. So if you have any views on artificial intelligence, do you use artificial intelligence? Are you developing artificial intelligence? It would be interesting. Pop it in the comments and send us an email or whatever it might be, a text message. There's an ability to send text messages even on Spotify. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
There is, yes. If you click the link above Spotify, you can actually send us a message. So please do that. And hopefully we'll hear from you. And then we will be back with episode, the one after this, 8. I think it is. And we'll have another topic to chat about. So thank you all very much and speak to you all soon.
All the best.